Good afternoon, everybody. This is Dr. Joseph Baker from the Lavender Chiropractic Center. I want to welcome you to our workshop this evening. Tonight we're going to be talking about 5 ways to better sleep. And I know we can not only spend this next 25 to 30 minutes having this conversation, we could probably take a couple days breaking this down, dissecting all the different ways that we can do things better in order to help ourselves get better sleep. What we want to do tonight is keep it really simple. We're going to break some things down that some of you are going to already know. Some of you are going to tell me that, hey, listen, this was new, I wasn't aware of that. And others, you're going to let me know that you just simply have to get back on track with doing things that you know you're supposed to do. In fact, as I've answered questions about this in the office, how do I get better sleep? How do I feel more rested? You know what? I oftentimes hear from patients the fact that they're waking up, they don't feel rested. They don't feel rejuvenated. They feel tired and lethargic. Are you waking up that way? Are you getting up from your sleep not feeling like you've been revived and ready to re-engage the day? Well, then let me tell you, this workshop is for you. And in fact, you're going to find out that at the end of this workshop, I'm going to have a special ask of everybody out there, but particularly the patients at the Lavender Chiropractic Center. As we teach in our office, we always seek first to understand. And to me, this is one of those moments and opportunities that I'm going to be asking everybody to respond to make sure that we're helping you so that you're getting the most out of your sleep, so that you do feel rested. And that when we look at this body of ours, we're doing everything we possibly can to enhance the healing process so we are capable of living life as vitally as possible. Now, unfortunately, this is a well-documented problem. I'm not going to go into tons of research on this. We know that people who are not getting the proper amount of sleep, there are numerous signs and signals. In fact, because they're so numerous, most of us just simply overlook them. We have been trained by modern media, by advertisers, to recognize that when I have this symptom, when I wake up and I'm tired and I'm not feeling as revived or I'm feeling sluggish, what do? We reach for things, the stimulants to get us up and moving, whether it's the Red Bulls, whether it's the coffees or those type of drinks that are there to just simply jumpstart our day. Well, oftentimes, those are hiding the symptoms. They're suppressing the signals that our body's trying to give us. And here's the thing. If you learn nothing else from this workshop, I want you to take away the fact that we have to listen to our body when it speaks to us. If we do, if we're listening to when it speaks to us, well then guess what? We don't have to wait for the crisis, for the breakdown, or for that opportunity of our body to scream at us and cause us to stop to pay attention. We see everything from decreased attention spans, people feeling depressed, difficulty processing, different ideas and different activities. You get through the process and it's like, I used to do this a whole lot easier and I don't know why I'm struggling with this today. Maybe some of you have experienced the weight gain that comes when you're not getting the proper amount of sleep, or the fact that your immune system is being broken down and you're getting sicker more frequently, more regularly, and it seems like it takes longer and longer to overcome those things. Well, the problem is that if we're not setting ourselves up first and foremost with getting the proper amount of sleep, well then shame on us. We don't even let our body get up to bat. In fact, we'll talk about that in just a few minutes as far as, when is it that we're supposed to be getting that rest? Because unfortunately, this is not a chiropractic thing. This is something that the actuarials, people who study rate of disease, death, and demise, these are those individuals who have looked at the statistical outcomes, and they understand the fact that when we don't get sleep, there's a problem. We become more of a death risk for people who want to insure us. In fact, the term graveyard shift, working across that third shift, it was something that was adopted, and in turn, it has meaning in today's age where if we're working that third shift, if we're working across the graveyard shift, well, unfortunately, we're not getting the sleep that our body needs. And the actuarials, they know you're 30% more likely to have a cardiovascular episode. You're going to die 30% sooner when you're working third shift, just simply because you're not getting the sleep that you're supposed to have. And like you see written up here, everything from an increased risk of heart disease, kidney disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, and stroke are those things that are the signs, the signals, our body trying to talk to us before ultimately those bad choices bring about that death sooner than it's supposed to ever happen. So, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about the bigness of the problem. Listen, I'm going to tell you, I see it every single day in my office when I talk to kids, when I talk to my adult patients, and I get to hear from them the fact that they're not getting the sleep early enough. And in fact, oftentimes they're not setting themselves up for success. So let's get a pen and paper. Let's jot some of these things down. You're probably going to want to re-watch this in order to help yourselves to make sure that you're actually hitting some of these check boxes. So, first things first, let's control the things that we can control. We all have this thing, it's called a thermostat. We get to set it. And the thermostat should be set, and it's a pretty good size range, between 60 and 73 degrees. In turn, that's going to keep our body from getting overly hot, overly heated at night. We want to make sure that we're developing the pattern of dimming the lights in our room. We want to set the mood for ourselves to make sure that we're starting to cause our body to go through a shutdown process. I was just describing to my wife the other day as we were out and we were talking about a piece of electronics, and I was describing why, we need to shut certain things down first in the process. And the reason is because when you have the opportunity of shutting down systematically, there's a better outcome. There's a better outcome for the system as a whole. And in this case, for our body, the better outcome is that we get to take the steps to bring ourselves to that place where success is capable of happening. Well, part of this, like I said, let's control the things that we can all control. So we want to make sure that we're also maintaining a sleep schedule. Now, as adults, we look at it and it's like, really? I have to schedule myself to go to sleep? Watch my head. The answer is yes, absolutely. Let's think of that newborn. Do we let that newborn stay up as late as they want? Well, the answer is no. We put them on a schedule. And in fact, as I think of the young children in my office that are, 2, 3 years of age, those that are on a schedule, that have the habits and patterns, function much better. Those that are allowed to stay up until all hours, those that aren't kept to a schedule, well, mom and dad have a really tough time. They've got a tough time, not just with their feeding schedule, but also with the temper and the mood of these children. And all we as adults have to do is look back at these children and recognize that what's good for them is actually good for us. Everything in our body describes that we're supposed to be in motion and we're supposed to have a rhythm in life. Just like the sun sets at a certain time, it rises at a certain time. It commands the flowers to open and close in that same respect. Well, our body is no different. If we think of ourselves in nature, yes, we should have those times when we shut down, when we go to sleep. Circadian rhythm is one of those things that we need to take advantage of. And the sad thing is that even as adults, if we think of, ourselves, we recognize that when we got on a plane and we're traveling from one place to the other, jumping time zones, how when we're taking our body out of the normal rhythm with nature, unfortunately, there's difficulty in falling asleep. There's difficulty in staying in pattern and how off we feel. So I'm going to tell you, developing a sleep pattern, a sleep schedule, even for us adults, is absolutely important. A friend of mine uses a term, discipline equals freedom. And this is one of those times, one of those moments where the application is true. The application demonstrates that when we have the discipline, we get to experience freedom of being revitalized, freedom of that new energy the next day, and in turn, giving us the opportunity of getting up and out and engaging even more in the things that we want to do. Now, a lot of you, in just a minute, are going to scratch your head as you see what's up on the board. What in the world does my diet have to do with me sleeping and getting a good, restful night's sleep? Well, we're going to use a little bit of science here, and we recognize how our body processes things like carbohydrates. And unfortunately, because we live in a world and a society that has been taught and trained to consume huge amounts of carbs throughout the course of the day, we realize that it has to be part of our conversation tonight. When our body goes to break down carbohydrates, it's going to increase the core temperature. It's going to increase the metabolism in order to burn these things off. And we recognize that it's really hard for our body to shut down when we're causing the metabolism and the energy of our body to be used in order to break these carbohydrates down so that they're not turned directly into fat, and then us spending more time and effort in the process of trying to get rid of it. We have to be mindful of what we eat. In fact, some of you might need to consider, well, I really don't keep track of what I'm eating. Maybe you need to be taking away from this workshop tonight the fact that you need to do a diet diary. And you need to be, mindful of seeing, well, this is what I'm consuming. This is what I'm putting in. And maybe shifting some of those choices to bring about a better outcome for you. Now, the other thing, which oftentimes people cringe about, is the fact that we have to be consuming good fats. In a day and age where we're taught and everything is advertised, low fat, no fat, we need to be consuming the good fats. Because let me remind you, your brain is 80% fat and water. 80% fat and water. And if we're not feeding our body those good fats, the problem is that it's going to struggle in any form of activity. Whether it's you driving the car, whether it's you reading a book, whether it's you trying to process and slowly shut down. See, stress inside of our body keeps our system from ever functioning the way it's supposed to, as efficiently as it's supposed to. So therefore, making sure that we're consuming things that are good and beneficial, like the good fats, the potassium, the magnesium. So things like your bananas, your nuts, the greens and seeds, those type of things are going to feed the nutrients into your body so that you can actually have the building blocks there to give you the opportunity of shutting down the way you're supposed to. Finally, one of the things that oftentimes is talked about, which most of you know, if you have trouble, you want to also make sure that you're limiting caffeine because the stimulus that it puts into the body, it stimulates your body. Well, we don't want to overstimulate our body. We want it to allow it to calm and relax. So in turn, I know some of you are going to say, hey, listen, you know what? For me, I could drink coffee 5 minutes before I go to bed and not have a problem whatsoever. I have other patients who look at me and say, if I have more than 1 cup of coffee in a day, I can't go to sleep at all. So in turn, I recognize everybody needs to take account of this on their own. Now again, some of the things that you want to consider nutritionally are things like making sure that you're consuming enough magnesium in your body. This is one of those things that's been able to help people that have insomnia. Melatonin. Melatonin aids in helping the serotonin levels, which allows the brain to shut down. Some of those melatonin-rich foods are things like your bananas, your cherries, ginger, which not only is really good as a sleep aid, but also is one of those things that's great as an anti-inflammatory for those of you who also have arthritis conditions, degenerative joint disease, those type of things. Along with that happens to be tomatoes. B12 is another one of those things that supports normal cellular function. And a deficiency in it has been known to cause insomnia. So we do want to be aware of that. One of the things that you can do is utilize something like lavender and Roman chamomile oils in your bath at night. This is one of those things just like shutting the lights down, dimming them down, it allows for a calming effect. And I know many of us who've had children, we've spent time around babies, we know the beneficial effect of how something as simple and easy, something as non-toxic as essential oils that have lavender in it, help to just simply calm and soothe a young baby and child. Well, let's remember, we're no different than that baby. So therefore, using those type of things is absolutely essential for us to set ourselves up for success. One of the great things with utilizing an Epsom salt bath is that the magnesium that's in there, it allows it to actually be absorbed through the largest organ of our body, our skin. Let's remember that 70% of what we put on our skin, what we come in contact with in that largest organ, well, it's going to be absorbed through it and it's going to get into our body. So we're always cautious about what we put into our body, just like we're cautious about what we put onto our body. Now, some of those other lifestyle changes that some of us have to consider is making sure that we get outside, that we're getting that sunshine. Let me tell you, it's one of those things that is going to stimulate the melatonin. It changes the mood of your system and in your body. We want to make sure that we're doing things like meditation and prayer as we're doing, as we're doing different activities. You want to move your body. Some of you might be looking at me and saying, hey, listen, I know all these other things, but with this social distancing, with this opportunity of just simply secluding myself, one of the biggest things that I've neglected is just getting up and getting out and pumping oxygen into my system. Some of you might have to consider restarting some of those exercise programs so that you're stimulating the metabolism in your body in order to actually move toxins through the way you're supposed to. Now, the fifth thing that we'll talk about happens to be your pillows. And I'm going to tell you, it's a topic of conversation over and over and over again with new patients in the office, which is, Doc, what's the best pillow? And I'm going to tell you right now, there is no best pillow. The best pillow for you is the one that puts your body into the proper position in order to reduce stress on your spine. Plain and simple. I use a lot of different types of pillows here. We use travel pillows. We have normal foam pillows and other types of pillows that help us position patients. But here's the thing. In the end, if we're not getting into that proper position, the stress that we put into our body keeps us from being able to do the things that we want to do. And I love this image. This is one of those great images that most of our patients, once they learn, they understand, they latch onto. So many people, when they first start in our office and under chiropractic care, they look like this. We want our spine to be straight, not just when we're standing up, but when we're laying down. In fact, as I have this conversation here in the office, we have a chair rail in our office, and it circles our office, and in fact, I get to point to it, and I get to show patients visually, this is what you want your spine to look like when you're laying on your side. Just like the chair rail, nice and level, nice and even. And you can see in this first picture how that neck is tilted up. Listen, doesn't matter which side we're laying on, if it's not right, it's wrong. The second thing is, without a pillow between our knees, our hips are always going to be twisted. And what do most people say? I woke up, I got a stiff neck. I woke up, I got out of bed, and I couldn't stand up straight. Oh my goodness, my low back is so sore. Well, of course you would be sore. If you're provoking, if you're exercising tissue, if you're training your tissues into these bad positions for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, of course, you're going to wake up and your muscles, before you even get started, are going to be fatigued. And in turn, we recognize the setup is one of those most important things. We want to make sure that our head is nice and level. We want to make sure that that pillow is between our knees so that our hips and pelvis are not rotating around at night. And in fact, when we're laying on our back, we need to make sure that we're protecting these curves in our spine. So many in my office, when they start under chiropractic care, the curves in their spine, when I look at them from the side, the normal 45 to 60 degree curves aren't there. They're not there. In fact, we talked about tech necks last week and in fact, how damaging it is. Well, this is a continuation of the process. This isn't the conscious act of destroying the curve in your neck. This is the subconscious act, where we're sleeping with, 1 or 2 pillows underneath the head, and in fact, causing our chin to be pushed down onto our chest as we're laying flat like this, causing the low back to flatten out and stress to be put into the joints. We need to be making sure that we're putting pillows underneath our spine so that we're maintaining and supporting these normal curves as our body is supposed to be in this restful position. Again, when we look at this, I love the fact that, we should see these nice straight lines. We should see that nice level spine. In turn, our pillow helps us get set up for success. In fact, the last thing in what can you do is making sure that you're getting adjusted. For some, you might need to go back and watch videos that we've done on vital needs. And vital needs are, simply put, those are those things that our body requires in order to function well and continue to operate the way it was designed. Yes, food is all the way at the bottom. Then we have water. Then the oxygen in our body. But at the very top happens to be nervous function. Our nervous system functioning the way it's supposed to. Well, in turn, many of you ask, well, why is it so important that I'm getting adjusted? That I make sure that my spine is functioning the way it's supposed to? Well, let me tell you, it's really hard getting a good night's sleep when every time you turn, you're experiencing that shot of pain. When the muscles are tightening up more than they're supposed to because the nerves are irritated, because the bone is out of place. When in fact you're waking up in the morning and you can't stand up straight because the hips were twisted around and it caused the disc to shift sideways. In the end, the muscle's not the problem. The disc is not the problem. In the end, the problem is that proper alignment of the spine. And if in fact those bones are out of place and not capable of allowing the nerves to function the way they're supposed to, the tissues are never going to work right. sadly, we recognize that the health of the body is in direct proportion to the health of the spine and the nervous system. And yes, you can do all of those other things right. But if in fact you're not making sure that that spinal function is working the way it's supposed to, there's no way you're ever going to get the most out of every single night's sleep. Now, I told you, I was going to have a special ask of you. And in fact, for those of you that are watching that are patients at the Lavender Chiropractic Center, you know that we've talked about our spinal workshops are not options for any of our patients. This is part of every single patient's care in our office because we recognize that the education of our patients is even more important because of the change in the habits, the change in the behaviors that allow us to actually stop doing the really bad things that have put us in this position, and they help us move forward even more quickly. So in turn, we recognize that yes, knowledge is power. And it actually helps us not only overcome our problems more quickly, but it keeps us from making the same mistakes over and over again, which only leads to depression and frustration. So in turn, as patients in our office, I'm going to be asking of each and every one of you to do something next, which happens to be to send your pictures. I want you after this workshop to take a moment and figure out if you need to ask somebody for help in order for them to take a picture of you laying on your pillows at night. One of the things that I recognize is that we want to set our patients up for success. We don't want them to continue to be frustrated in the process. So my big ask of you is that you take the 2 minutes and you actually send this information to the office. You can send it to our limerickchiropracticinfo@gmail.com account in order for us to be able to review it so that we can make sure that we help get you into the right position that your body requires even more quickly. And here's the thing. For those of you that aren't patients, we would be more than delighted, not just to take a look at your pictures of your sleeping posture, but also to make sure that you have the opportunity of getting checked. Call the office, let my team know that you saw us on Facebook. We'll make sure that you have the opportunity of having your spine checked and tested so that you know where you're at, so that you know some of those things that you can do in order to protect yourself so that you're listening to your body while it's talking to you and not when it's having to scream at you. I love doing these workshops. I know each and every one of you is going to have a different takeaway. I'm going to ask you to like this information, share it amongst your Facebook friends, but also I'm going to ask you, as a reminder for yourself, to put something in the comment section so that in time it's going to show up in your Facebook feed as a reminder of some of those things that this conversation has provoked you to change, which a lot of times we know we have to be reminded of again and again so that it becomes a habit and a pattern for us. I've enjoyed having you with me this evening. This is Dr. Joseph Baker from the Lavender Chiropractic Center.